Well, hi, welcome. My name's Nigel, and I have no idea. I know Mitzi, Karen, and Katie, and EV owners. So really, you know how when you go and you see a presentation and people talk for like 45, 55 minutes, and then they go, okay, so now we've got 5 minutes for questions at the end, and you've been sitting there the whole time waiting to ask your question, and you've either got bored or you've forgotten what your question was. So let's do this the other way around, which is just you ask us questions, and we'll answer your questions. How's that? Does that sound better? Okay. So who's got a question? No. Come on. What would you like to know? Tell us what you would like to know about, and we'll talk about it. You want to talk about the cars themselves? Do you want to talk about range? Do you want to talk about batteries? What happens to the batteries when they're no longer good in a car? Battery recycling? Go on. What? That? Is that your question? Mm-hmm. Yes. Great question. So actually, have you ever seen there's a Volvo advertisement which actually shows a Volvo being driven into a giant plexiglass tank full of water, parked in there, stopped, and then driven out. And so any car, whether it's a gasoline car or an electric car, it has got electronics in it, and certain electronics do not take kindly to water, whether it's electric or gasoline. The batteries in all of these cars are designed and tested to be in crashes, underwater, all of these issues that we have. So yeah, I mean, you're not going to get electrocuted in it, which is an interesting thing. I went to a, do you mind if I just blurb on? Okay. I went to a GM first responders course, and what they asked there, what they did is they showed you all about EVs. What do you do with an EV if the battery should catch fire? Which is a question I will answer for you as well. But or there's an accident with it. What do you do? And so there's an awareness with fire departments and police departments about what to do when there's a fire with an electric car. Now, there aren't many, but people do freak out when they hear about them. Like, for instance, Chevrolet had 15 car fires, right, out of over 200,000 cars. There is an average of 212,000 gasoline car fires every year in America, and we don't say a word about that. But we're worried about electric cars. Obviously, when an electric car catches fire, that battery is very hard to put out. So there are systems in place for that. When the tow truck driver picks it up, where does he park it at the dealership so it's not near other cars, so that if the battery should reignite, it's not right next to a whole bunch of other cars? Or if it's up on a ramp being repaired and suddenly it starts smoking, how do you get it out? Are you prepared? Do you have the equipment to drag it out of the building? But we worry about that, and every car has its issues. And we're in the early stages still of battery technology, but it's not something I would freak out about. And I've been driving EVs since 2009. And I think I've got completely off the track of what you were asking me in the first place there. But no, batteries, people say, well, what's a battery going to cost if I have to replace it? Well, we have an expression which is, how long is a piece of string? Because who knows, in 10 years' time, 15 years' time, when you need to replace that battery, maybe it's going to be smaller, lighter, cheaper than it is right now. So it's sort of a bit of a moot point. Plus, they have 8 or 10 year, 100,000-mile warranties. And that doesn't mean that that battery is going to be useless at 100,000 miles. It just means that that's the extent of the warranty on it. A lot of the new battery chemistries in, say, the Teslas have 1 million miles of range out of them that they believe they're going to get out of them over the lifetime of their battery. When the battery is no longer good in a car and it doesn't give you enough range, then you have it installed in a building like this. So you use it, you have your solar panels on the roof, you pull the power from the solar into that battery and it sits in that battery. If you have a peak time, let's say we had lots of lights on in here or something that was using a lot of power, we could draw power from that battery to keep us at an even draw from the utilities. Plus, you can also use that battery to sell power back to the utilities. So what they'll do is, it's sitting here, it's full of power and it's not being used, but the utilities need a bit of extra power. They can take some from your battery, pay you for it, and they pay you a lot more than you actually paid for electricity in the first place to offset what they need. So that's another advantage of it. And then when it finally is no good for a car or storage anymore, then it goes to a company like Redwood Materials, who actually, the guy came from Tesla. And what they do is firstly, they take the power out of that battery, because obviously you don't want to get electrocuted. They take the power, then they use that power to then crush up that battery into a fine powder and then separate it out into its component parts and recycle all of the bits that are in it. So we don't actually dump them into a trash when we're done with them, which is what we do with our phone batteries, our lithium AA batteries and AAA batteries and things like that, which we waste. We just don't do that with the EVs. And eventually it won't be just lithium ion. There'll be something else. There's microcapacitors, there's super microcapacitors, there's, oh God, what's it called now? It's gone from my mind. Solid state batteries. There's lots of things that are in the pipeline still. And one day someone will be in the shower and they'll have this mind-blowing awareness of, oh, this will make the perfect battery, and then we'll have an even better battery than we have right now. But the batteries and the technology we have for electric motors as well is perfect. A lot of times people will say to me, well, I'm just going to wait for the technology to get a bit better. And it's like, well, but which bit of the technology are you waiting for to get better that we haven't even invented yet? It's like, we would never have got phones if we just said, you know what, I'm just going to wait till the phones get a little bit better. I'm waiting for the iPhone 35 and then I'm going to be in on it, right? We just jump in it now and there will be better and longer distance, if you need longer distance, in the future. I'm not sure if that answered your question at all. It was just all over the place there. But do you have any questions for my team? Go. Yeah. My day-to-day movement? Commute. So there's a lot of things to that, right? Thank you for translating. My commute. Well, I've always liked being in a car, gasoline or electric. I mean, I'm not a car nut, right? I don't know everything about all of these cars. And there are guys that I worked with that knew everything. You know, if you look at a car and they go, well, actually, that's the wrong headlights. That's from the year previous or something like that. I don't know any of that stuff, but I like sitting in cars. I find that I like that it's silent. I like that I'm not polluting at all. And not everyone likes to talk about pollution, but it's there. It's a fact. I like that. I like that I can fill my car from empty to full on a 110 or a 240 at home, and it will cost me $7.04 to get 260 miles out of my car, right? And that's like a gallon, not quite 2 gallons of gasoline. I love that. I love that I don't do oil changes, fan belts, filters, hoses, nothing. I just do tire rotation once a year. Well, twice a year, actually. If you're a bit of a spirited driver, if you're a bit of a spirited driver, you could eat through a set of tires. Because that's probably the main thing that it does, is there's so much power, so much torque, that every time you accelerate off, you spin the wheel a little bit and it takes a little bite out of your tires. So that's your biggest expense, I think. There's nothing I don't like about it, really. It's difficult to know. Go on.
Katie, you just got a new car. Hello? Okay. It's a lot. Hello. I did just get a new electric vehicle. So my husband and I have been sharing one car, a Honda, for many years. And so it was our turn to buy a new car. And so we looked through many, many vehicles and settled upon the electric car, Nissan Leaf. And it has made our commutes so much nicer. My husband and I are still students at UNC, and I'm a teacher. So the commutes are more than half now what we have to pay than what we did with our gas car. So it's been wonderful to have an electric vehicle.
I have a Chevy Bolt. It's a 2019. I absolutely love it. It's probably one of the best cars I've ever had. Had one of the batteries that Chevy replaced, so I got a battery replaced, and I got a new 5-year warranty. So that was really good for me. I drive like a grandmother now, which I am, and so I don't have a lot of wear on my tires. I have the original tires. It's just one thing I love about it is I live in Longmont. I can drive from Longmont up to the top of Trail Ridge Road, and when I get back, I have about the same amount of energy because it has regenerated all the way down. It's like a free trip, so I love that.
I have a Nissan Leaf. I call it Leafy, and we got our first one in 2014. We did sell it after putting 70,000 miles on it. The battery was tested. It still was at 95% life. So we have our second Leaf. It's 2020. We drive it, Steamboat, New Mexico, Cresta Butte. I really love an electric car. As Nigel said, there's really not much maintenance except the tires, and I do tend to spin them a little. So I get new ones. But it's been great driving an electric car for almost the past 10 years.
You see, we're all grinning when we tell you about these things. So what you were asking earlier is, just the word for it is fun, right? They are fun. It's like, do you remember passing, what did you learn to drive on? Stick shift? Volvo, right. Okay, so you remember that joy of when you got into the car, you passed your driving test and you got into the car on your own for the first time with no one in the passenger seat. Sorry, wrong side of the car. Passenger seat, right? And you were on your own and grinning. And I was whooping at the top of my voice and like singing and everything. And it was just so fantastic. And that's how I feel about driving an EV. Even now, after driving them since 2009, there is something about that acceleration, that smooth, linear, no gear changing acceleration that I just love. And that's the thing, is it's brought that joy back that, when you're doing lots of commuting around, it's not so much fun after a while, but it is fun when you're driving something different, an electric car or a bike. Electric bikes, I'm not all about cars. You've got your micro mobility, which is, for most of us, is ample most of the time. And so, fun is the word for it. Any other questions? Any other? Yes. Charging stations.
This has been a journey since I'm a new EV owner. Finding electric stations was, you download the apps. My favorite one is PlugShare. I'm not being sponsored, but and you have to find the locations. And sometimes the machines will be working to charge your vehicle. Some you show up and you're ready to charge and they're not working at all. So that's just something to always keep in mind about making sure that you're finding one that fits your time frame. If you have an hour or two to kill, sit at a restaurant, go to a movie, finding an electric station that you have the time for to hang out and let it charge. Other ones are faster, but they can do a little more wear and tear on your battery life and all that good stuff. So saving the level 3s for something that's emergency, usually running to the airport, back to the mountains. I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing a lot that day. So, and then finding the free ones, that's the most fun. There's a movie theater near our home, and there's a free station there, and that's been very nice to find. So yeah, it's a trial and error to figure out the right stations for you.
Yeah, I mean, we are creatures of habit, most of us, right? We always talk about the range and how far well, it's only got 250 miles, and you say, well, how far do you go in a day? What, 30? Okay, so what's the matter with 250 miles? The whole point is that the fast chargers are lovely, but most of the time you won't use them, because all you do is you come home in the evening. The batteries don't have a memory to them, so you don't have to drain them down like you used to with your phones to nothing and then charge them up. So you come home in the evening, it's at 80%, you plug it in to a 110. A 110 is going to put 3 to 5 miles for every hour you charge it. So literally, if it was completely empty, and we always talk about being completely empty, then it's going to take you probably 52 hours on a 110. That would not be fun. But you don't need to drain it down to nothing. That's the whole point. We used to live in California, and my wife would regularly run the car down to nothing and then fill it up, and then complain about how much it costs to fill it up. Firstly, it's much better if it's at half a tank and then you fill it up and it's not so painful. Secondly, if there was, and I said to her, well, if there's an earthquake and we have to get out of town, and you're at an empty tank, and now you're going to be lining up with 500 people to pay $100 a gallon for gasoline. So I just keep, like your phone. How often do you forget to plug in your phone in the evening? You only do that once or twice, and then you definitely don't forget again. And also, cars nowadays will remind you if you haven't plugged it in. They have a system where they know via GPS where they've been. So if they go to a charging station again, but you don't plug it in, they're going to send you a text. Not every car, but a lot of them will tell you that you haven't plugged in. But we don't forget very often. And so the trick is, let it get down to 50%, plug it in somewhere. And level 2 charging, which is a 220, is everywhere. Not enough. We focus too much on a level 3 super fast charging, which most of us don't need unless you're doing a road trip. And if we've sold you a car and you're having to fast charge it every single day, we sold you the wrong car. Right? It's not for everyone yet, but it is for most people. It will work. I mean, I've never run out. I got close once to running out because N-Rail called up and they said, will you bring your car down to N-Rail so that we can plug it into our new level 3 because we want to set everything up on it? And I went, yeah, sure. And they said, but bring the car pretty empty, okay, so that we can do this. And I went, yeah, no problem. And I said, oh, I know where N-Rail is. So I've got like 23 miles of range in the car, and I drive down to where I think N-Rail is, which was actually where the windmills are. That's where I thought N-Rail was, right? So I get there and I go, wait a minute, there's nothing here. And then I look it up and I realize that, oh no, it's actually in Golden. Now I am creeping along at like 20 miles an hour, hoping I don't run out, and I finally made it. But yeah, that was my one experience of almost running out. But it'd be difficult to run out nowadays. Hi.
I just read recently that of all the EV owners, about 90% of them charge at home. Anyway, so it's the idea of looking for a charger somewhere is very seldom needed. I have an EV. I've had it for 5 years now, and I can count on one hand the times I've needed a charger at us, because I just bring it home and plug it in. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, the fast chargers are like a security blanket for people so they don't have to worry. But it's true. You plug it in at home most of the time. And it's 11 cents a kilowatt hour where we are. And then it's even cheaper at night. So it's just so inexpensive to charge a car. Any other questions from you guys?
I have a question for you.
Oh, yeah?
I saw somebody out here that has an adapter so that you can, yes,
Tesla.
so
Right.
that you can, so I could charge my Bolt on the Tesla
Right.
infrastructure.
But you can only charge
that
it on
safe?
but you can only charge it on their level 2. That's for level 2 charging. It's not for the fast charging yet. It will be, right? There have been 3 different plugs, which is a little bit like, VHS and Betamax, or cassettes and 8-tracks, or CDs, and we never quite settled on one. And so now we've had what was called CHAdeMO, which is Nissan, but Nissan only, and that's going to be going away. And then we had CCS, which everyone else has, is CCS, except for Tesla, who has NCAS, no, NACS. Now a lot of the manufacturers are going, oh, you know what? We like the plug that they have at Tesla. We're going to take that plug and use that same plug. So now all of the charging stations that are out there right now are going to have to adapt some of their chargers to have the Tesla plug on it. But you'll also be able to use the Tesla plug. But there is one, Leviton, I think, is the company that does it, and it's like $75. It just means it gives you access to even more plugs as you drive around if you needed to do it. But again, I don't charge anywhere else except for home. And my kid has done 15,000 miles since January in his car. Thank God he is not charging for gasoline. Is one thing. You had something? Oh, I've got to stop? What, are you going to throw us out? What are you going to do about it? This is my microphone. Go on. Stop it. If you have any other questions, then, because she's telling me to stop, and I'm not going to argue with her.
Yeah,
If you have any other
one
questions,
thing.
come and speak to us afterwards.
Mitzi wants to say something.
Mitzi.
Yeah. So this, to me, was the eye-opener. Everybody's, of course, afraid of running out of juice, which, knock on wood, 9 years has never happened, whether we're charging at home or publicly. But one time, my husband and I drove up to Netherlands, and I think we had like 165 miles on the car to use. So we went to Netherlands, then we went almost to Black Hawk, and I'm thinking, I wonder if we have enough. Then you descend down Golden Gate into Golden. Then from Golden, that's kind of a slight descent into Boulder. And when we got home, we still had over 100 miles left. So a lot of times we don't realize that the car does recharge. Same thing happened to me this week driving home from Denver. So there's a lot of things that are kind of misrepresented, but the car goes further than you think, which is kind of neat.
I read on a one of those listserv for Chevy Bolt drivers, and it said the key is to remember ABC. Always be charging. So when you get home, you plug it in. I don't plug mine in that often because I don't drive very much, but I think if people are concerned about maybe not having enough miles to drive the next day for their commute, just remember, just plug it in.
That's it. Yeah, lovely. Well, if you have any questions, obviously there's lots of people that you can contact. Sustainable Resilient Longmont. There is a website. One of the best ones I find is, if I can say it, driveelectriccolorado.org. The nice thing about that is that's got every car, all the rebates that are available. It's updated regularly. And go and test drive some stuff. If you're not sure, go to Hertz, because Hertz has a fantastic lineup of EVs, and rent an EV for the day. So you get, it's not like you're having a test drive with a salesman next to you. And I'm a car salesman. So, but just go and do it on your own and just enjoy it and get a feel for it. Was that it? Are we done? Are you chucking us out at 1:30? All right, it's chucking out time.